the only reason that white people in the United States or anywhere we are, in Europe, in Africa, in Australia, in Israel, wherever we are the colonizers. We are the colonizers, and we live off the expense of the assault, Europe's assault on Africa, the kidnapping of African human beings, the trafficking, all of these things that we hear today. This is where it came from. Hundreds of years of assaulting and stealing everything that African people and Africa as a continent had, and putting it into the hands of white people. And so this is why, as the chairman has said, the true class struggle, the true working class in the world is the African and colonized working class, not white people, because all white people, and you know this is true. You and I know this is true by just living our lives and seeing it. All white people sit on the pedestal on the backs of African and indigenous people. And, you know, the statistics are that even poor white people have an easier ability in a crisis to raise $3,000 in an emergency than middle-class African people do. Yeah. Because we live in social wealth. Yeah. We live with...
White folks, you don't like it, but all you are is faded blacks.
Period.
That's the way it is. Every one of you, if you trace your DNA back far enough, you're going to find that some of your DNA came from Africa. Because we all have the same ancestor back there, every single one of us. And those of you who think you don't have are obviously from outer space.
My parents were racist. I didn't catch on to it till I was in college, but they were raised that way. My husband's parents were racist, but they were raised that way. And they never saw how evil it was. I remember as grade school, went to a water fountain, and it was for the whites and for the blacks. Why didn't I know then that it was wrong? The water's the same for everybody. Why was it like that? I was so stupid not to realize that that's wrong. Wrong.
I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism somehow means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they are white is absolute nonsense. No child alive today is responsible for slavery. No one in this room is responsible for slavery. But each and every single one of us bears responsibility for writing the next chapter of history. People who are different are not the reason that our roads are in bad shape after decades of disinvestment, or that healthcare costs are too high, or that teachers are leaving the profession. I want every child in this state to feel seen, heard, and supported, not marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian.
She said it out loud, and it is true. Many white American families are thriving because of free labor they have got from enslaved black Americans. 400 years of free labor. And many European countries are thriving because of wealth they have stolen from African countries. And that is the truth. I want us to hear from these other white folks, and then we come back at the end and expose more harsh truth. Stay tuned and tell me what you think in the comment section. This video is only for educational purposes. Let's get into it.
I know I don't understand your experience.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I have never had to live it.
Come on now.
I can sympathize. Yes. And I can recognize when things are wrong.
We're sisters and brothers here. Talk.
For instance, if a black man or woman should never be afraid for their life, for getting pulled over for speeding.
Come on now. Come on.
But I have never lived in that fear.
Come on now. Come on.
No black man or woman should ever be reluctant to walk outside for fear of racial profiling.
Come on, sister. Tell it.
But I have never been racially profiled.
That's right. Come on now.
No black man or woman should ever expect to go to jail in their lifetime because of the color of their skin.
Come on now.
But I have never lived in that expectancy.
That's good.
And this is why I don't believe in the phrase, I don't see color.
That's right.
One, to say you don't see color is a lie. We're different. We can all see that. But two, and way more importantly, to deny the differences in our skin is to deny the differences in our privilege.
Come on. Yeah.
I'm going to say that again because I think it's worth repeating. To deny the differences in our skin is to deny the differences in our privilege.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my next point. To deny the differences in our color is to promote ignorance. Ignorance is the reason that systemic racism and oppression is allowed to exist in this country.
That's good.
So why am I here? Why am I up here speaking?
Come on now. Tell them, sister.
I'm going to talk on about three things. One of those is change, the other is ignorance, and one is discomfort. I'll get there.
Go ahead. Take your time.
Broadly speaking, why am I here? Because I want change. But let me speak on that for a second. Because I think a lot of people want change. I think a lot of people say they want change, but let me clarify. I think a lot of white people think they want change.
Come on.
But here's the thing about that. In order for there to be a true and genuine change, for you, for the black community, for people of color, there has to be an equal and requited amount of change for white privilege.
That's right.
And that is something that white people don't want to think about. They don't want to admit that. White people don't want to acknowledge the head start we have in life just for being born this color. You know what? That is willful ignorance.
Put it on front line.
Willful ignorance is what allows oppression to continue in this country.
Together we stand. That's it.
So I'm going to talk on ignorance for a second. I think one of the biggest things that allows ignorance to continue is our education system.
There it is, baby.
Yes, ma'am. Our education system.
Yes, ma'am.
And what I mean by that is our education is a white man's education.
It is.
It is a white man's history.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell it.
Why does that matter? Again, like I said, I can recognize when something is wrong. And that is wrong. Why? Because when you tell that history, the history that excludes black history and black culture and the black experience, you allow white people to think that nothing is wrong. And when that happens, you allow white people to think, well, it was bad back then, but it's not bad now. Hell no.
That's right.
It's bad now. In fact, some might say it's worse because this is systemic oppression.
That's right.
This is institutional oppression. This is oppression that is not overt, but it is just as powerful, and we are able to hide it.
God almighty.
And I have more to say. If you want to hear all of it, please come out Saturday.
We'll be there.
Thank you. We appreciate it. But just know the reason I'm here is because I stand by you. I support you. I love each and every one of you out here. We are brothers and sisters to the day we die. And this is not my time to have my voice heard, but I will use my voice for you. I promise.
Thank you.
You need to look at this from an anthropological perspective and look at human beings more as like a species, an animal. It is not just our ability to feel that separates us from AI, but it is our ability to feel for each other. Empathy, the ability to empathize. And I say that empathy specifically is what makes you human because animals have feelings. For example, I've seen countless videos of like people who have multiple pets, and when one passes away, the other pet will experience depression because of the loss of their buddy. Animals can feel. Humans can empathize. Literally appears in every single major religion as what we call the golden rule. That is your ability to empathize with other people. If you are unable to empathize, if you are incapable of putting yourself in their shoes and seeing how you would want to be treated if you were them, you are lacking a key component of humanity to you. You do not support the betterment of our species. You are an active detriment to our species. And if we were still in hunter-gatherer times, you would have been weeded out as the weakest link in the community. Humans can only survive in a community. People in a community protect one another. They work together. They pool resources and share. And as seen in every other species on this planet that functions in community and not alone, It is typical that if an individual is not contributing their fair share to the community, and or if they are actively harming the community itself and the well-being of all, they are then isolated from the pack and left to die alone. It was literally necessary for the advancement of our species. Now, at some point of the human population growing, we developed wealth accumulation, right? Accumulating wealth means control because you can afford land, you can afford weaponry, or an armada if you wanted. You can afford resources, and then you can control the resources, and thus now you are in a position where you are the person dictating what happens in the community. And here's the fatal problem with that. Having a lack of empathy makes it easier to acquire wealth because you have no problem persecuting others or lying or cheating or stealing or doing whatever you have to do, including unaliving and enslaving people in your community. Because of this, communities lost the ability to weed out the people who do not have empathy and thus are harmful to the community. Not only did they lose the ability to ostracize these people, they became controlled by these people because they were able to accumulate wealth with their lack of empathy for others. And because now the people that are controlling society and ruling it are the people without empathy, we see the emergence of things like white supremacy and the patriarchy. And because of the patriarchy, women were forced to marry and reproduce with people who otherwise would not have been suitable candidates. And that is literally the reason why now, as a human community globally, we are about to have the world's first trillionaire exist, while some people cannot even afford to eat right now. Now, if you are a racist, I'd reckon you didn't stick around this long in the video. But I know that some of you are going to try to make the argument that I don't feel empathy for racists, so that makes me subhuman. And that is not true, because it is my evolutionary and biological responsibility to humans as a whole to not feel empathy towards the people who are harming the overall good of all of us. There is no reasoning or logic on this entire earth that justifies oppressing anybody. You are quite literally trying to compare non-empathy for the detriment of mankind to non-empathy for the betterment of mankind, as if they are the same thing. And I'm not saying that all racists need to die, but I am saying that I am totally okay with you guys going off on your own and starting your own communities outside of the society that I live in, because I don't want you in mine. For every racist that leaves this world, the world becomes a little bit better of a place.
I get this question a lot. Why did slavery take so long to end in the U.S.? I mean, we had 3 major rebellions and none of them worked. Slave owners in America had something nobody else had. 5 million poor white people. That's what W.E.B. Du Bois argued in 1935. He said slavery demanded a special police force. And he wasn't just talking about slave patrols. Poor whites, folks who had nothing in Europe. In America, they labored long hours with little pay and terrible work conditions. These 5 million poor whites created an informal surveillance system. They snitched, kidnapped, and returned slaves. They made sure nobody got out of line. And when slave rebellion started, they came out in even larger numbers. Keep in mind, they didn't own any slaves. They weren't making a real profit, and they probably could have changed their conditions had they teamed up with us and waged a class struggle. But policing blacks was the only thing that made them white. It was the only thing that connected them to the planter class. Du Bois said they were just pleasing their own vanity. So before Ring, ADT, whatever you got, poor whites were the surveillance system for wealthy slave owners. Without the white public's investment in maintaining slavery, we would have tore the whole system down.
White people's inability to sympathize with brown and black people deeply hurts me. And don't be dense, of course it's not all white people, but it's a general understanding of the world. But it hurts me, right? Because I've never looked at a person as less than them being a person. I've never looked at a starving man and looked at him as other than being a starving man, despite his race, ethnicity, or background. The pain that I feel when I talk about what's happening across the world is the same pain that I feel when I talk about my people's history in the hands of white folks. It's the same pain that I feel when I talk about slavery. It's the same pain that I feel when I talk about Asian genocide. It's the same pain that I feel when I talk about any group of people being hurt, especially innocent groups of people being hurt. But to a lot of black and brown people, it's like you have to explain to white folks that, hey, we're people too. We have feelings too. We have people that we care about too. You see how when something happens and it hurts you and you cry? Yeah, that happens to us too. Because when you look at the racial dynamics of the world, black and brown people are not treated as people, not in comparison to white people. Look at how America treated the Ukrainian refugees versus any refugees, Mexican refugees, Caribbean refugees, African refugees. Look how they treated them. And you won't even let us have our stories. Black and brown people spent their entire livelihoods. A majority of our history is us going against the odds. It's us fighting for freedom. And you have the face of the resistance being white people. It's like if a problem is not centered around white people, then it's not a problem and it truly doesn't matter. I've seen a variety of white women come on this app and cry about Lana Del Rey being snubbed at the Grammys while in the same breath talking about how Victoria Monet did not deserve hers. I don't know, the fact that I have to go online to be like, you should sympathize with these brown people, you should sympathize with these black people, eats me alive. Like, America has made a mockery of my people and my country, and I'm used to it, but at the same time, I'm not.
My parents were racist. I didn't catch on to it till I was in college, but they were raised that way. My husband's parents were racist, but they were raised that way, and they never saw how evil it was. I remember grade school, went to a water fountain. It was for the whites and for the blacks. Why didn't I know then that it was wrong? The water's the same for everybody. Why was it like that? I was so stupid not to realize that that's wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
White women love to say we're all in this together, but are we? Because history suggests otherwise. Feminism has frequently been about white women first, expecting Black, Indigenous, Latina, and Asian women to stand behind them. Not beside them, behind them. And if we're being honest, it only ever seems to matter when they're the ones that are affected. This isn't about division, it's about reality. Let's talk about it. From the very start, white women have been centered in every movement that they've led. While women of color, we've been expected to serve. Black women were enslaved, forced to raise white children, clean white homes, and cook white families' meals, while their own families suffered. Indigenous women were displaced, stripped of their land, and forced into assimilation schools designed to erase their culture. Asian women were brought as cheap labor, confined to back-breaking jobs, and denied the right to citizenship. Latinas have long been exploited in this country, in agriculture and domestic work, and paid pennies for labor that sustains this country. And when white women started pushing for rights, for equality, for change, they expected women of color to fight right beside them, but never for them. Women of color stood side by side with white women, fighting for the right to vote. But when the 19th Amendment passed in 1920, white women celebrated. Black women in the South still blocked from the polls for another 45 years. Indigenous women, not even considered citizens until 1924. Asian women, legally barred from becoming citizens, which meant they couldn't vote until 1952. And Latinas, they faced literacy tests and language barriers that kept them from the ballot box. And white feminists, they moved on. They got what they wanted, and just like that, our fight became an afterthought. In the 1960s and 70s, a second wave of feminism came about. White women, now they were fighting for equal pay, reproductive rights, and workplace equality. Sounds great, right? Until women of color said, what about racism? What about forced sterilization? What about economic discrimination? That's what keeps us underpaid and overworked. The response was essentially, let's focus on women's issues first. As if racism, medical discrimination, and generational poverty weren't women's issues. Once again, our struggles were too complicated, too messy, too inconvenient for the feminism that they were building. And once again, white women expected us to fight beside them, but not for ourselves. Now let's talk about who white women actually fight for. Because if you want to know where someone stands, you look at their vote. In 2016, 53% of white women voted for Trump, a man who openly bragged about SA. In 2020, they tried to fix it by voting him out. And in 2024, the majority of them put him right back in office. Meanwhile, 92% of Black women, we voted to protect everybody. The polls don't lie. Latinas and Asians, Indigenous women continue to fight for sovereignty and representation. But white women, too many chose whiteness over sisterhood, again. And here's what's wild. Feminism always expects us to march, to organize, to fight. But when it's time for white women to show up where it really matters, they don't. White feminists today expect women of color to be front and center when their rights are under attack. They want us out in the streets for Roe v. Wade, but where were they when Black and Indigenous women were being forcibly sterilized? They want us to fight for equal pay, but won't acknowledge that Black and Latina women still make significantly less than them. They'll post Black Lives Matter, but won't call out the racism in their own families, their friend groups, or their workplaces. Because here's the truth. White feminism only truly mobilizes when white women feel the impact. The moment they're comfortable again, the urgency disappears. This isn't about division, it's about accountability. Throughout history, women of color have stood beside white women in their fight for equality, led movements for racial and social justice, often alone, built coalitions, voted for change, and showed up, whether or not it benefited us directly. And what we've seen over and over again is when white women get what they need, they move on. It's not bitterness, it's reality. And we finally heard y'all.
Normally, when we talk about racism or colonization, people say we are exaggerating, we are emotional, or we are living in the past. But here you have white Americans saying it straight from their mouth. Not defensive, not sugarcoating, just telling the truth. The first woman said, wherever white America are, Europe, America, Africa, they are the colonizers. Listen, that alone could be a whole documentary. Because people act like colonization was a moment in time. No, it became a system, a business model, and we are still living inside the system today. Wealth was transferred, land was taken, bodies were stolen, cultures were erased, and that created generational advantages on one side and generational obstacles on the other. And instead of admitting that, people just say, well, I worked hard. Working hard is not the same thing as starting ahead. Then she dropped a start. Poor white people can raise emergency money faster than middle class people because of something called social worth. That is the difference between being broke and being equal. Social worth means system protects you even when your bank account doesn't. Your skin color is the credit score. You don't need a safety net when the system is your safety net. And when that man said, you are all faded blacks. Listen, whether you agree or not, I get the frustration. Because whenever black people speak about history or identity, the first thing society say is stop bringing race into everything. But race was brought into everything. We are just addressing it. Then there is that white lady who said, no child alive today is responsible of slavery, but we are responsible for the next chapter. That's right, there is accountability, not guilt. Accountability. The people who are uncomfortable with that sentence are usually the ones benefiting from silence. And I love when she said the educational system is white history, because when you only teach one side of the story, the people on the other side grow up thinking oppression ended when the page turned in the textbook. Meanwhile, black people live the continuation of that story every single day. You can't fix what you refuse to acknowledge. The part that really stood out, you can't say you don't see color. Facts. If you don't see color, you don't see privilege. If you don't see color, you don't see patterns. And if you don't see patterns, you don't see systems. Saying I don't see color is not equality, it's avoidance. It is a way to feed innocent without having responsibilities. Then we get into empathy, and that was my favorite segment, because empathy is not feeling bad. Empathy is understanding impact. In the video, it was said, animals feel, humans empathize. Meaning, if you can put yourself in someone else's shoes, you are not evolving, you are just existing. And look at who historically lacked empathy. Colonizers, slave owners, people who built their wealth on trauma. If your success requires someone else's suffering, that's not success. It's exploitation dressed as achievement. When she said wealth concentration happened because the people without empathy rose to the top, that explains everything wrong with the world. It explains why we have billionaires and starving families in the same city. The math ain't mathing. but it makes sense when you realize power is designed to protect itself. And then Du Bois, he exposed something people don't teach in history class. Slavery was not just enforced by wealthy plantation owners. It was enforced by poor white people who had nothing. The only thing they were given, the only payment, was the title white. Not land, not money, just identity. They didn't gain anything material, but they gained the illusion of superiority. Whiteness became a currency. Imagine choosing superiority over solidarity. They could have joined forces with enslaved Africans and fought the rich. Instead, they protected the rich just to feel above someone else. And don't forget the part about white feminism, because white feminism is not the same as women's liberation. When white women wanted the right to vote, black women stood beside them. But once they got what they wanted, they moved on. They didn't look back. They did not return the favor. In 2016, in 2020, in 2024, white women choose whiteness over sisterhood. If that offends you, look at the voting maps. Numbers don't lie. What these white creators are saying is not hate white people. The message is, if your liberation requires someone else to be ignored, silenced, or erased, then it's not liberation, it's privilege. At the end of the day, nobody is asking white people to apologize for being born white. Black people are asking white people to stop pretending the system doesn't exist and to stop benefiting from the silence. Empathy is not guilt, accountability is not hatred, and speaking truth is not divisive. Silence is. If you have enjoyed watching the video, please make sure you click on that like button and don't forget to subscribe if you have not yet subscribed. Drop your opinions down there in the comment section. Mr. Tia signing off. Ciao.